moderator is a lawyer by day. He has practiced law for 25 years. As a student at Notre Dame High School, he was part of the debate team. He went on to Kalamazoo College to be a theater major. There, he won Best Supporting Actor for the role Dirty Old Man in William Ing's play Picnic. Can you believe that? Our moderator got his start on WYMURAM 1310 and is now the current host, as you probably all know, on Let It Rip on Fox 2 News. He appears on WWJ News Radio 950 as a legal analyst. Our moderator has won 4 Emmys and 3 Wade McCree Jr. Awards. He has interviewed many important people like Rosa Parks, Charlton Heston, Johnny Cochran, and Barney the Dinosaur. So, to properly introduce him, I will not sing the Barney song. So you can all applaud, trust me, trust me. So please, welcome Charlie Langston.
They get that dirty old man comment. I thought I changed that way back when. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, it looks like whoever wins this debate perhaps will be the next member of Congress. Does that make sense? There is a Democrat in the race, I guess, right? No, someone said no. All right, hey, thank you for coming. Purpose of tonight is to see if we can distinguish the differences between these candidates. All right? We'll do a series. They'll give an opening statement. We'll ask some questions for our panelists, and we'll just kind of let it rip, as they say on Fox 2. I've heard that before. Let me introduce first the panelists that'll be asking the questions, and I'm just going to go right through them. No big order here. Let's bring out he's run for office a number of times, former state rep, Rocky Ruskowski. Rocky, come on out. A political commentator. You can hear him every day on WOMC. Jim Johnson. JJ, come on over here. Let's bring some rock and roll to this event. He was formerly with the Detroit News editorial board. Now he's writing for auto and a lot of things in the Detroit News. Henry Payne is here. And a political commentator. She knows all things politics. Kathy Hoekstra. Come on, Kathy. All right, I'm going to introduce the candidates right now. You guys know who they are. I'm not going to give big introductions because I'm sure they'll do that during this debate. First of all, Representative Tony Forlini. Tony, come on in. Air Force veteran David VanAssche. Come on in, David. All right, businessman Paul Mitchell. Come on, Paul Mitchell. Former State Senator Alan Sanborn. And current State Senator Phil Pavlov. All right. Gentlemen, have a seat, please. Thank you so much. I'll remind the candidates, and I'll remind the audience, we want to have a nice debate. If you, how do I say this nicely there? Just keep your enthusiasm to a little bit of a minimum. Let them go. But if you like something they say, it's okay to politely clap, but let's keep it good. Let's keep it nice today. All right. Candidates, the order, here's how we're going to do it today. They'll each get an opening statement. Then we'll have questions and answers from the panelists, and then each candidate will get a closing statement. Everything is timed. Timekeeper, hi, timekeeper. Hold up that card when you've got something there. What does that mean?
You're almost done.
How many seconds do they have when that yellow card is up?
45.
How much?
45.
When they have 45 seconds left?
15.
When they've talked for 45. Got it. Gotcha. Red means stop. Okay? We all got the rules here? All right. Let's have a good debate. The opening statements, everything was chosen by lot. Questions were made about a half hour ago. Nobody knows the questions. I don't even know the questions. And the first person to give an opening statement right now, Representative Tony Forlini.
Thank you, Charlie. And thank you, everyone, for coming, and Palazzo Grande for donating the room. This is by far the best event we've had, and this is, I think, our 5th forum together. But thanks for coming. Why am I believe, the most qualified? I've been a business owner for the last 32 years, and I've been in business budgeting people's assets. Now, today, I'm running for Congress because I like to do the same thing. We have a problem. As a township supervisor, I had to balance a budget and made it work every year. As a state representative, I was part of the appropriation team that helped fix the budget 5.5 years ago. And we want to take that same message to Washington because with over $19 trillion of debt, we got to fix it, and we got to fix it now.
Thank you, Tony Forlini. David VanAssche.
Thank you, Charlie. My name is David VanAssche, running for Michigan's 10th Congressional District. Let me first start out by saying I'm made in Detroit and pure Michigan. Not every candidate up here can say that. I was born and raised in St. Clair Shores, Michigan. I come from very humble beginnings, youngest of 5 children. At an early age, I had to learn what hard work and discipline is. I want to serve our country, so when I graduated from Lakeshore High School, same high school as Candace Miller, in 1987, I joined the Air Force. I went from E1 to Air Force One over a span of 27 years. While I was in the Air Force, I managed several multi-million-dollar programs for the Air Force, saved taxpayers millions of dollars, as written in my officer performance report. My last 5 years, I spent at Air Force One as the Chief Mission Director. What that meant is I planned, led, and directed every one of the President's trips, to include when he went into Afghanistan, and less than 20 people in the whole world knew that trip was going to happen. When I retired in January of 15, I moved back home. Home's where my heart is. I took a small high-tech renewable energy company from a startup to a multi-million-dollar company in less than 18 months, say 70 jobs going overseas to China. What's most important in hurting our country today is national security and the economy, and I have extensive leadership and experience.
All right, you're not ready for the Senate. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Mr. VanAssche. Okay, next. Paul Mitchell. Thanks, David.
Hi, I'm Paul Mitchell, and I want to thank the Palazzo Grande, the panelists, and the party for making this opportunity for all of us to talk about our qualifications and to talk about the issues that face this country because they're serious. I think I'm a unique candidate in that I've spent 35 years helping adults get skills to get a job, support their families, and grow the economy. That's what I've done with my life. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I retired in 2011. I want to talk more about those qualifications as we go through this debate. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is some of the political elite want to talk about that we should have a debate with only a couple people or 3 people, and we should disregard some of their candidates. Everyone on this stage tonight has earned the right to be here. They've earned the right to be here. They collected petitions. They've been all over the district campaigning. We need to continue to allow them, to support them in doing that. I respect them. One of the problems we have in this country is a lack of respect for people, and we saw what happened in Dallas when it goes to an extreme.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Alan Sanborn.
Hello, I'm former Senator Alan Sanborn. I represented the Macomb County area, at least 400,000 of them, during my time in the Senate and the House. And I'm proud to say that my family has lived, worked, and farmed in the 10th Congressional District since 1832, before Michigan was a state. People ask me all the time why I'd want to return to politics, because I left the Senate 5 years ago to return to my job in law enforcement. And I tell them 2 reasons. Number 1, I love my country. And number 2, I no longer recognize my country. It sure has changed in the last 5 years, and I guess I'm too old to go to war, so I want to go fight for you in Congress. And it's an honor to be here tonight at the Palazzo Grande, joined by the people that I represented for 13 years in the House and Senate. I was A+ rated by the NRA, 100% pro-life, and never voted. I'm the only one that can say I never voted for a tax increase.
Thank you. Mr. Sanborn, all right. Phil Pavlov.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and thank you, everyone, for showing up tonight. You know, when our great Congresswoman Candace Miller decided that she was going to retire from Congress, it opened up a great opportunity for the 5 of us to enter the race. And the last 16 months for me has been so exciting. The one thing I've learned from being on the campaign trail is you guys are here for a reason. And it's because you believe you don't have a voice in what government has to say today. And your demonstration today, putting 400 or 500 people in here, hats off to Jared and the Macomb GOP for pulling such a great crowd together. I'm looking forward to the questions from our panelists. And, you know, the next 3 weeks are going to be very exciting. And I hope that I have enough message for you tonight to earn your support on August 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlov. All right, let's start the second element of this debate, the question and answers. Kathy, please ask Mr. Pavlov the first question.
All right, Senator Pavlov, can you hear me? Thank you,
Yes.
gentlemen. At the funeral today of the slain Dallas police officers, President Obama said of race relations in this country, quote, "We know the bias remains." As one of the least diverse districts in the state, how can you, as a member of Congress, improve race relations in our nation?
I'm not convinced that we're the most racially undivided district in the state of Michigan. So I would just say that we all have a responsibility. And I think that there's an opportunity for people to rise above the conversation that's going on. And if we're going to wake up every morning to deaths and shootings and violence, I think this country is in trouble. But I think this is a direction really leading from the Obama administration. And we need leadership in the White House and leadership in Congress to be united and to be able to recognize our differences and honor our differences and celebrate our differences. And unless we can do that, we're going to have a hard time coming together as a country. We are on the edge, and I believe more incidents like Dallas send an opportunity for us to split this country even more. And so we all have a responsibility to be able to come together and rise above that rhetoric.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlov. Mr. VanAssche.
Yeah, I understood your question clearly. You know, 95% of this district is white. But so how you would improve that, it's all really about education. And really, you know, I have to look to the greatest commandment for that. You know, I go to Scripture for a lot of my teachings. You know, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. You know, there's no different races. There's only one race, the human race. There's different ethnicities. And so you acknowledge that, but you embrace that. Being in the military for 27 years allowed me to travel to 45 different countries. And I love experiencing the different cultures and the different people. And so I learned to really embrace different cultures and different walks of life. And so really it's about education, it's about serving them, most importantly, loving them.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Forlini.
Yeah, thanks for the question. This is the number one thing in the media today, and I think this comes down to really a degradation of society, family values. We're seeing situations where police are having a hard time policing, and teachers are having a hard time teaching. It's coming down to we're forgetting where we started from. As far as diversity, I probably represent the most diverse, my current district right now. It's basically 50-50 Democrat-Republican, but I have a significant amount of diversity within my district, and it's not about race. Everyone wants to make this about race. I believe it's really truly about the family values being taken down to the point where we're not respecting one another, we're not respecting rule of law. And when you do that, you got chaos. And that's what we're seeing today is chaos across the country.
Thank you, Mr. Forlini. Mr. Sanborn.
This is a deeply personal issue to me because I spent 23 years in law enforcement and had friends that were a lot of cops. I've known cops that have been killed on the job. So it's deeply personal to me. But one thing I learned, I went to an integrated high school and played sports there. And one thing I learned, and I think it was best summed up just yesterday by Ben Carson, when he said, people have to understand that we're all in this ship together. And if one end of the ship takes on leak and starts taking on water, the whole ship goes down. And we, as a team in the United States, needs to understand the words of Abraham Lincoln. No house divided against itself can stand. And we need to start working together, all races. But it's not just races, because it's more than just races. Veterans' lives matter, and the lives of unborn children matter. So I don't want to hear a double standard.
Thank you, Mr. Sanborn. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. My oldest son's a police officer, and the night of the events in Dallas, I called him to remind him to put on his vest. He's a detective. To be careful out there. It's a personal issue for me as well. It's hard when your child is a police officer and that's what he wants to do, is protect us. I think President Obama is a leading cause of the problem. He's divided this country on race grounds. He's divided this country by class. He's divided this country whether you live in a city, whether you live on a farm. And the reason he does it is he can hopefully build his own coalitions and raise money. So he and the progressives can take control. It's disrespectful of people to put them in categories based upon their race, their class, where they grew up, what they have and don't have. I ran some of the largest welfare to work programs in the country back when welfare to work meant going to work. They were diverse programs in Cleveland, Philadelphia, Savannah, Mobile, Detroit, Grand Rapids. I dealt with diverse staff, diverse population, and I think you deal with people respectfully, it works.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. JJ, next question to Mr. VanAssche.
First, gentlemen, our party has a new standard bearer, Donald J. Trump. Can I get a pledge of hands? Do you promise, if nominated, that you will support our party's leader, Donald J. Trump?
Absolutely.
Now, I assumed that was the case, but the last leader of our party has started a movement, Never Trump, the Dump Trump movement. Mr. VanAssche, how would you address our fellow Republicans who have vowed to either stay home or write in another candidate's name instead of Donald Trump?
Well, I'd remind them what happened with when Ross Perot entered the race, you know, and so that took away votes from that presidential election. But I would remind people a vote not for Donald Trump is a vote for Hillary Clinton, and we cannot have a criminal, really, who should be indicted running for president of the United States. Being in the military for 27 years, having the highest security clearance in the land, if I was to take my TS computer home, I would not be here as a candidate right now. It's a shame.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Sanborn.
I think I will be supporting Donald Trump. People are sick and tired of politics as usual. And I think one thing we can all agree on, Donald Trump is not politics as usual. He's going to shake things up. I have been knocking with my wife, Lori, for she's been my wife for 34 years, and she is out there as my campaign manager knocking doors with me every day for the past 16 months. And we hear it. The most common asked question, are you with Donald Trump? I am with Donald Trump. I'll be supporting it. My dad, Charlie, you know Dad, he was a judge, and in the 1950s he was a state legislator. He used to have an expression, I didn't understand it then, I get it now. He'd say, Republicans have a way of dividing up and eating their young. We need to pull together. We're all in the same boat. It's pulling together, gang, and supporting Donald Trump, or you run the risk of having Hillary Clinton, and you better hide your guns, fans.
Thank you, Mr. Sanborn. Mr. Mitchell.
Thanks very much. I think the Dump Trump movement is disrespectful to the voters. Donald Trump had a record number of votes in the primary. He got 47% in the 10th Congressional District in this primary. Think about that. He's talked about issues, raised issues to the fore that other people were ducking. He's forced conversation about issues that are important to us. Immigration, our economy, trade agreements, security, a border. Imagine that. And you all know how many politicians would duck that like the plague. The reality is he's forcing people to talk about things they don't want to talk about, and some of the people in the political elite don't like it because they're going to lose power. I saw a poll in the fall that said 80% of the population believe that there's a political class in this country that will do anything to hold power and privilege. That exists in the Republican Party, it exists in the Democratic Party. I would support him, I will appear with him in a campaign. I think Donald Trump can shake things up.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Pavlov.
I think clearly one of the best things that's come out of the Trump movement has been this open conversation about political correctness. We can put that off to the side and we can start worrying about the issues that are affecting everybody. And immigration is one of them, and border security is another one. And the idea that the 10th Congressional District is the second busiest border crossing in North America ought to send shakes down everybody's back, because we have infiltration coming through in my own home community in St. Clair County at the two bridges, the underground tunnels, we have pipelines, we have more risk here, and we finally have a candidate out there who's drawing light to those situations. And look, I'm all for Donald Trump. He's going to sign my bill to eliminate the EPA. He's going to be signing my bills that reform the budget, lower the federal taxes, and start working on the debt in this country. And we all ought to get behind him, because if we don't, you're going to get the leader that you deserve. And imagine 4 to 8 more years of the Clinton administration.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pavlov. Mr. Forlini.
You know, we're obviously very united in this approach of keeping Trump and moving forward with Trump. Donald Trump won the primaries. He is our candidate, and we have to get behind him. I sometimes hear what's going on, and people don't like what he has to say or how he says it. But he's saying what people are thinking. Everyday people, everyone in this room, are thinking some part of what Donald Trump has said. We need to get back to plain speaking, common sense legislation. And I got to say this is, and I said this before, would have I have hired, I'm a business owner, would I have hired Barack Obama in my business? I wouldn't have hired him. Would I have hired Hillary Clinton? No, I would not have hired her. Would I have hired Donald Trump? No, he would hire me. So look at it from that stand. He's the CEO. He's going to be leading our country, and we need to get behind him.
All right, thank you, Mr. Forlini. Don't go too far away. Henry Payne, next question to Mr. Forlini.
Mr. Forlini, you're the proud son of immigrants.
I am.
Your website has an inspiring video on it right now in which you and a number of other representatives recite the poem that's on the Statue of Liberty. Part of that poem is, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." If you listen to the rhetoric of Donald Trump today, you may wonder if the Republican Party still believes in that refrain. The Republican Party, since George Bush got 44% of the Hispanic vote in 2004, has gradually seen those numbers go down. Can this party continue to be a pro-immigrant party when it is not attracting the vote of the fastest growing minority immigrant community in this country?
Absolutely. You know, I am a son of an immigrant. My dad came here from Italy. I still remember as a young kid going to drop my dad off to American school. He wasn't learning English, he was learning American. And it was a proud moment when he became an American citizen. But it was work. There was a process. There was a proper process to go through. When people talk about immigrants coming to this country, I embrace immigrants. I always have. But legal immigrants. From my standpoint, anybody else is a trespasser. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. And the problem we're having is we're not addressing it appropriately. We should be on this situation completely embracing immigrants that come here the right way. If you come here the wrong way, you need to leave, period.
Thank you, Mr. Forlini. Mr. Pavlov.
You know, whether you're talking about the Hispanic community, we talk about the diversity, the ethnic diversity in this district, the Chaldeans, the Macedonians, the Polish people, the Italians. We are a very diverse district, and they all came here looking for opportunity. The Republicans ought to be able to lead on economic opportunity. Whether you're an immigrant or you were born here for generations, we all need jobs, we all need opportunity, we need a path to prosperity. And so I think you can push that to the side, and if the Republicans mount a serious challenge and put jobs and economy first, safe communities second, we have an opportunity not only to get 44%, but get 64% and 74%. With the proper leadership, we can create permanent majorities. And with that opportunity comes their opportunities to raise families, to grow our economies, and to give us an opportunity to continue on that path to prosperity. It's about jobs and economy.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlov. Mr. VanAssche.
You know, the Republican Party is for immigration. You know, Donald Trump, the presidential candidate, he says, hey, the door is wide open. Just come through the door, not around the door. You know, you have to first remind Americans that we're first a land of law and justice, and these are laws that need to be followed. And so immigration is welcomed here, absolutely. But immigrants, they need to be vetted. You know, it's not just the Hispanic community that's migrating here. It's people from every tongue, tribe, and nation that wants to come here. We're still the greatest country in the world, and for good reason. And so for that, we need to make sure that the door is open, so the Republican Party is for immigration. So when people say and push back and the Republican Party gets a bad knock on that, I push back because I'm a conservative Republican and I'm all for immigration. I just want them to come through the door and not around the door.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Charlie. Trump has said, you're not a nation without a border. And in fact, to a great extent, we're not. For example, almost 500,000 people a year come into this country on a jet plane with a visa and overstay it, and nothing is done about that, nothing whatsoever. Somewhere just short of estimate is 5 million people. So yeah, we've got a problem with the southern border. We have a problem with, potential problem with the border in Port Huron. We have a significant problem with people we have information on. We need to enforce the laws we have now. I've met with Border Patrol, and they said the current policy is catch and release. We have released 60,000 felons in this country because we can't deport them to countries won't take them back. But the law says if they don't take them back, we should refuse to give them away visas. We haven't done it. Again, the Obama administration's failed. One last point I'll make about it, under no circumstances will I ever vote to give the vote to an illegal immigrant.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Sanborn.
Allow me just one moment to bore you with my genealogy yet again. I'm sorry, honey, but family's been here since 1832, but thank God for the immigrants that have come here. My mother-in-law is here. They came from Funteggiari, Italy, this last generation, and thank heavens she did, because I've got my beautiful wife, Lori, here. But the problem is, it's an insult to them and all the other people that immigrated here legally to have illegal immigrants be moved to the front of the line with regard to benefits that they are drawing out. Did you know that an illegal immigrant can draw benefits from Social Security after 14 days? That's an outrage. It's an outrage. It's got to be stopped. The first piece of legislation I will introduce will be, if you haven't paid into Social Security, you don't draw out. They're drawing out disability income, $752, food stamps, housing stipend, attention deficit disorder, and so on, bipolar. They're getting stipends for these things. They're bankrupting the system.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sanborn. Don't go too far. Rocky, ask Mr. Sanborn a question.
Senator Sanborn, we've talked about immigration. Let's switch a little bit to a different subject of immigration, the refugee resettlement program. What is your specific proposal on dealing with Middle Eastern refugees, and what specifically would you do to stop the refugee resettlement program and the entitlement benefits that are being paid to refugees that are coming to this country and the state?
And Rocky, it's great to see you again. My brother from the 1990s in the House of Representatives. And one of the problems that we have, and America is the land of opportunity, but when you have people coming from countries that are on terrorist watch lists, like Syria, for example, and they're coming here, and if, say, only 1% of the people with nefarious intent are infiltrating that group, and they come here, then we're going to see a lot more situations like what we've seen in Orlando, Fort Hood, and other terrorist attacks. And what are they going to do? They're going to look for soft targets, like our schools. So we need to watch very closely and monitor the people that are coming in. And frankly, from countries where there are on terrorist watch lists, I think we need to put a stay on it. We need to stop them from coming in until we can properly vet who they are.
Thank you, Mr. Sanborn. Mr. Mitchell.
Thanks very much. My position on refugees is pretty simple. We cannot bring in individuals that are refugees from affected areas. FBI Director Comey, the CIA have all said we don't have information to vet them. You're making a guess. We can't guess with our national security. We cannot bring refugees into this country, and we need to stop it. I'll do everything I can in Congress to do so, withdraw the money for it, pass laws that will prohibit that. Second thing we have to do is provide safe haven for refugees where they're at. Awful lot of polling says that people want to stay there, but they're not safe. We can help do that. We need to support our allies to do that. We need to support them in terms of air cover, in terms of technical assistance, provide enough support so our allies can crush ISIS. That is the problem in the world right now, and we need to deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Forlini.
And I happen to agree. What a disaster our foreign policy has been over the last 8 years. We've created an environment where people are not safe in other parts of the world. We left Iraq, we left this world in a vacuum where people weren't safe. Iraqi Christians are being persecuted, being slaughtered every day. And what are we doing as a Christian country? Nothing. We are letting them being slaughtered. I agree with the safe zone. We need to provide areas where people can go to so they don't feel as if they're going to get slaughtered. We need to be active in creating this environment so that they have a place, a home, a place they can go call home until things settle out. And it's not bringing them here unvetted, not knowing who's coming into our country. We need to, because they'll infiltrate the bad people into our neighborhoods, and that's not what we want.
Thank you, Mr. Forlini. Mr. VanAssche.
I'm definitely not in support of the refugee resettlement program for one reason only. FBI director has definitely went on record and stated that there's no way we can vet these people. You can't trace it back. And ISIS has already said they've already tried to plant people here. So having said that, do we take care of them? Absolutely. You know, a nation with great power and doesn't do anything with it, you know, we should be ashamed. We don't deserve that power. So we do need to work with our allies and provide these safe zones to where some of these refugees can go to different countries that are willing to take them, but not here in the United States, not at this time, not until we can accurately vet them and know who's coming into our country.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Pavlov.
Well, thank you. I'm the only member on this panel that has sponsored legislation not only to put a halt to the Syrian refugee importation into the state of Michigan, but also put an end to any state revenue sharing going to our sanctuary cities. ISIS has clearly said that they're going to use the refugee form. Yeah. The 10th Congressional District is on the border with Detroit, and Detroit is a sanctuary city. Not only are they a sanctuary city where they're giving refuge to these people, ISIS has clearly said that they want to be able to use that stream to infiltrate. They are here. We need to recognize that they're here. And we ought to be doing things locally and pushing some of those federal resources that are being blown on wasted money and start pushing those resources back to our law enforcement, because they're the ones that are going to be taking that 911 call when they come in there and start disrupting and blowing up our communities. We're going to stay with that. I'm going to continue with that resolution when I get to Congress, and we'll put an end to sanctuary cities and the refugee program.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlov. I didn't really want to take a question. I'm going to take one question. It seems to me, Mr. Mitchell, that some of your opponents have pointed out that you ran for this office 2 years ago, but from another district. Seems to be some of the criticism from some of your opponents is that you're either an opportunist or you're a carpetbagger. Also, some of your opponents, not me, have said that you're spending a lot of money, and some say that you may be buying a congressional race. How do you address that? For the other candidates here, is it just sour grapes? Are you jealous of Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Mitchell, you go first, please.
You want me to deal with that in 1 minute? Thank you for that.
1 minute.
Okay. Let's deal with the whole concept of buying an election. You all should be offended by that. First, my opponents in this that are elected officials have all outspent their opponents exponentially, 160 to 1. You would be amazed at numbers. Any questions? Check the state reporting. Now they whine, well, he's spending money. It's my money. It's not money I squeezed out of other people, out of PACs, various other people, that in fact I'll also be beholden to. It is my money to do with as I wish, to deliver a message to the voters. To change a system in which career politicians had the leg up because everyone knows who they are, all the PAC people know who they are, and they want to support their buddies. You've heard people on the stage who say, oh, I remember you from wherever. Yeah, there's a club. I've been told multiple times, guess what? You don't get to be in the club because it's not your turn. Well, you know what? Donald Trump stood up to the club, funded his own primary, and he kicked their backside. I plan to do the same on August 2nd, I assure you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Pavlov, are you in that club?
In the club of buying a race?
No, in the career politician.
No, I'm not a career politician. What I would say is I'm a representative. That's what I'm going to Congress to do. And hats off to Paul Mitchell for being able to spend $6 or $7 million to get to Washington. That's not consistent with our district. That's not consistent with the people that we represent. But he certainly has that opportunity to do that. And what I say is spend your money how you want, but think about it this way. You have some service people here like Senator Sanborn and Representative Forlini who get up every day to go and work on your issues and work for things that matter to you. And I would just say this is the only district that I want to run for Congress in, and I'm glad to have your support.
All right, because you mentioned another name, I'm going to get Mr. Mitchell, $6 or $7 million, that's what he mentioned. Is that what you're spending?
Well, it's creative bookkeeping on Phil's part, but that's not the first time. More importantly, let me suggest that the day the senator announced he was running, he called me for my support and a contribution. So let's be serious about it. I lived a mile and a half from Phil for quite a period of time. I have a division office in St. Clair. Our corporate office was in St. Clair to 2015. But when you're running for office, you make whatever tail you can and hope it sticks. Good luck, Phil. You're losing.
15-second rebuttal.
I get 30 seconds, and the issue is,
Go ahead.
not only have I got contributions from, restart the clock.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got contributions from Paul. Paul had lobbyists in Lansing. Paul lobbied me hard for welfare money to go to his programs. But more importantly, when Paul decided to run for city council in St.
Did you
Clair.
call him up and ask for support?
Yeah, and he called me to help him win a city council seat in St. Clair that he resigned for shortly thereafter. He let the people of St. Clair County down. I just don't think
Wanna
that
keep going?
the congressional district is something that you can walk away from. So,
Mr. Sanborn, you were mentioned as well. Go ahead, minute answer, go ahead.
Mentioned as what?
Well, someone mentioned, I think you're, I think the person.
The lifetime politician thing, I'm not sure how that.
Climb on in, have some fun.
I'm not sure how that carries water because I've spent 23 years as a probation officer in Macomb County. And frankly, I've been going in and out of homes and workplaces, checking on probationary wards for the most serious of crimes with frankly nothing more than a notebook to protect myself. I'd like to have you guys try that out. And as far as being a lifetime politician, I served in the House, I served in the Senate, and I left 5 years ago to return to my job in law enforcement. That's where I've been. I'm going to stay laser focused. I'm going to be taking the message to the streets. You see, we've knocked tens of thousands of doors over the last 16 months, and I've heard it time and time again. I'm not sure these guys get it. People in Shelby Township expect you to come to their home, look them in the eye, tell them what you stand for, and ask for their vote. That's why you're seeing thousands of Sanborn signs on people's front lawns, and the big signs too, because we have the grassroots support, and I haven't taken one special
All right, thank you, Mr. Sanborn. Mr. Forlini.
Well, let's go back. I mean, I've got to go back to when I ran as against an incumbent for township supervisor, and I beat a Democrat incumbent to be supervisor, outspent quite a bit. I then ran for state representative 6 years later up against an incumbent Democrat again and beat another incumbent Democrat that had these special, all the dollars, outspent me probably 5 or 6 to 1. So it's not the money that counts. People are looking for people that are going to represent them. I feel as if I wouldn't have won those races if they didn't feel as if they had somebody that's going to have their back. I've had the citizens of my districts back ever since I've been in there because I work hard. And in my elections, in my last 2 elections, I didn't outspend my opponents that great. And the Republican Party didn't have to spend a penny on my race, even though I sit in a 50-50 seat.
You're not seeking money from the Republican Party this election?
I'll seek it from anybody who wants to give it. I got a website, so send it in.
Good one, Tony.
I just thought I'd say. Mr. VanAssche,
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate
how
it.
much money are you spending in this race?
Quite a bit. Enough to win it, that's for sure. But let me just answer your question. So I served 27 years so Mr. Mitchell can run a business, earn millions of dollars, and be like Hillary Clinton, move into a state and run and, go at it. But here's the other thing. Let me finish, please. And I'm not the career politician, as you guys have seen my commercial. I'm the servant leader.
Sorry.
So 27 years, going from E1 to Air Force One. Then when I retired, I took a small high-tech renewable company to a multi-million-dollar company. So I have proven trusted leadership in the defense sector as well as the private sector. And I'm not running as a politician. I'm running as a servant leader because my whole life has been about service. Service to this district, our Great Lakes state of Michigan, and to our country. I served you guys with pride and honor. And I want to continue to serve you as your elected representative come August 2nd.
Thank you, Mr.
very
VanAssche.
much.
15 seconds. Are you Hillary Clinton?
No.
Are you Hillary Clinton?
My buddy here, when he left the Air Force, formed a lobbying forum called Union Square with an operative from the Clinton administration, and until this spring, it was up on a Facebook page and on a website. Anybody want copies of it? We have it. So to suggest that he's a business guy, suggest that he worked with a Clinton operative and he wants to call me Hillary Clinton. There you go.
Mr. VanAssche.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you want
That's what
Is Mr. Mitchell right? Did you work for the Clintons?
No, not absolutely not. So Union Square Strategic, this actually proves a point why I'm the best elected representative for you guys, is because I know how to cross party lines. So the owner of Union Square, the owner of Union Square Strategic, he's unbiased. He's not Democrat or he's not a Republican. So that's an untrue statement. Untrue statement.
All right, let's move on. Kathy, bail me out, please.
Yes. Yeah, that was fun, gentlemen, but let's get back to some policy. The 10th Congressional District has quite a proliferation of wind farms, wind energy, as well as ethanol and sugar production. Now, all of these industries enjoy a long tradition of federal tax credits and federal subsidies. In fact, Paul, you say on your website that you support continuing the National Sugar Program, which is estimated to cost consumers and businesses $3.5 billion a year. Republicans generally, though, stand on a very proud platform of fiscal responsibility and letting free markets decide winners and losers in the economy rather than crony capitalism and corporate welfare. As Republicans in Congress, how would you support eliminating these subsidies or supporting them, and why or why not?
Mr. Mitchell?
I agree with Trump. Free trade and fair trade. And the reality is, you do not have fair trade when Brazil controls 75% of the sugar market and subsidizes it to a great extent. If we did not have the sugar program, the 10th Congressional Districts and a lot of farmers would be in serious problems. So it incrementally costs people, and those that complain about it are largely the candy makers. By the way, I really like Hershey's, and some of the cereal makers. But the reality is, without it, we'd have a lot of people without their farms, without equipment. The same thing in terms of ethanol. Ethanol, the reality is, if we don't support the RFS, we put ourselves at risk in our energy program. We don't subsidize it. It's an RFS requiring a certain production of that to go into the system. It's not a direct dollar subsidy, despite all the whining and crying about that. So I support them. I'll continue to support them, and I'll support them till the cows come home.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. VanAssche.
I mean, subsidies are definitely needed in different industries, right? To promote free market. But free market definitely doesn't only have to be fair. It has to be mutually beneficial and equitable. And we've been getting our butts kicked. And one thing I love about Trump, and he says we send politicians to negotiate our international deals when we should be sending our best and brightest, our businessmen and women. And I have that experience as a businessman to go over there. I'm one of the best negotiators, if not the best negotiator up here on the stage, that I know how, when I was managing my multi-million-dollar programs, defense contractors with Boeing and Lockheed Martin, basically I had to educate them why it was important to not be self-serving, but to look at America as a whole and what's benefiting the products and goods and services that they're providing to the military. You take that same type of knowledge and you share that with the different entities when you deal with these international trade policies.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Pavlov.
Well, I mean, if you look at the diversity inside the 10th Congressional, not only do you see sugar in production, you see corn, you see dry beans, and not only has our thumb really ignited under this advanced production and the high yields, we're sending those products around the world. And the thing that we have to remember with ethanol is that it's homegrown energy. It's energy that is grown in our district, that revenue stays in our district, it's clean burning, it's safe, it reduces down ozone emissions, and it puts a lot of people to work. Now, you talk about the subsidies. If you take a look at the cost and the price of land in the thumb today, it's running at about $10,000 or $11,000 per acre. That's the market for that land, and that has produced the kind of stabilization and economic security that the thumb needs. But we do get to the trade issue and make sure that those trade agreements that are negotiated are upheld and they're held accountable so that our products can go around the world.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlov. Mr. Forlini.
We have the number 2, our economy, our agriculture economy is the number 2 diverse agricultural state in our nation. We have products from cherries to milk to wheat, and we just have more than just about any other state as far as diversity. What we do lack, though, is the ability to add value. We do some of it, but we need to add value. We're shipping product that we produce, the farmers produce in our state, out of state, because the regulations in our state make it prohibitive for them to add value to that product. Adding value to that product adds money in their pockets, can have co-ops and get things running. That's deregulation and making deregulation work. So the DEQ has put a stop to a lot of these practices of adding value. I worked for Land O'Lakes years ago. They took cheese and turned it into cheese sauce. That added value. These are the types of things we need to do in the state, is to add value to our products, and it'll take care of these subsidies.
Thank you, Mr. Forlini. Mr. Sanborn.
Yeah, I absolutely support the subsidies to agriculture and alternative energies. And frankly, if you're going to represent, and Phil was spot on. I agree with everything he just said, because if you're going to represent the 10th Congressional District, you darn well better be able to fight for our farmers. So I'm absolutely. And if you go up into Huron County and the northern regions of the 10th Congressional Districts, you're going to see the alternative energies. These alternative energies are great options because they make us less dependent on the oil cartels, for example, when you have alternative fuel energy as far as not just ethanol. But it creates an opportunity for job growth. When you say agriculture and you combine tourism with agriculture, that's the second greatest revenue source for the state of Michigan. And I think I'm just about out of time.
15, if you want to take another 15 seconds, you're okay. You have 15 seconds on that yellow one. It's okay.
Well, so I'm going to be fighting, and I'm sorry I'm not creating a lot of fireworks, but when I do my fighting, I do it as a statesman. So I want to tell you, Phil's absolutely right. He's absolutely right.
Charlie, he mentioned me again. He mentioned me again, and I want to point out the fact that he's absolutely right that I'm absolutely right.
You did mention him, I guess. That's true.
I did.
All right. Thank you. Let's have JJ follow up on that question.
Sure. To anyone in particular, Charlie?
Well, let's go in the order that I have. How about Mr. Sanborn?
Oh, there it is.
That's fine. Mr. Sanborn, you all have talked about subsidies for a variety of progress from agriculture to renewable energies. And I know that, Mr. VanAssche, you have a company who probably gets subsidies from the federal government for your, I'll let you address that when you have your time. But I want to narrow it into energy in general. The Democratic nominee for president famously said recently that her energy policy would put coal miners out of work and coal businesses out of business. I'd like to know, first of all, if you believe that climate change is man-caused, and if you do, what would you do to address it? If you don't, how would you deal with the tidal wave of support that climate change is getting, not only here, but around the world?
Well, there's very little that I agree with regard to Hillary Clinton. Very little. And as far as putting the coal miners out of business in Pennsylvania where she said that, that was just a stupid thing to say. I'm sorry, I'm not being a statesman. So what was the other part of your question? I'm sorry, JJ.
Man-caused climate change. Obviously, the push by the Democrats is to eliminate coal for climate change.
I'm sorry. Al Gore went in as a congressman. He was worth $4 million. And when he left the White House, he was worth $2 million. He's flying around on his company plane trying to sell the story of climate change. I'm not a scientist. I can't say that for sure that it exists, but I sure can tell you there's a lot of profiteers like Al Gore that are making a fortune off selling that. Now, I've heard Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and some of the people I respect very much talk to that effect. And I think there's a lot of people that are profiteering off the concept that I think it's overblown.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Pavlov.
Well, look, if you like low-cost, reliable energy, then you're for coal. I'm for coal. But here's what the Obama administration has done with this false narrative about man-made global warming. It's not true. We're actually global cooling for the last 39 years. Here's what's happening in the 10th Congressional District. We have 2 power plants in St. Clair County that are scheduled to close over the next 4 years. There's 350 people that work at each one of those plants. Those are our friends, those are our neighbors, and those are the people that are fueling Michigan's turnaround. You are not going to be able to hold the military and the defense industry here in Michigan. You're not going to have the big 3 here in Michigan when you're spinning their machinery with windmills and solar panels.
If I'm correct, This district is run entirely 100% by coal.
Well,
We
no,
are
there's...
chiefly fired by coal here, are we not?
Well, it creates an enormous amount of our baseload generation, but we have, 1,500 windmills, we have solar panels that are also feeding our grid. But I would just say this, if you want to see skyrocketing residential electric rates, go for the coal plan that Hillary Clinton is putting.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pavlov. Mr.
Charlie,
Mitchell.
hey, Charlie. Charlie.
So I didn't hear you,
Mind if I
Charlie.
just break in there, though? Is there a disagreement there, Phil, between you and Alan? Do you, the wind...
They love each other. No, what are you talking about?
The wind subsidies there are driven by Al Gore and the global warming lobby. This district is benefiting from those subsidies. Are you opposed to...
This
the
district
wind
is not
subsidies?
benefiting from those subsidies. I will tell you, in 2008, when we rewrote our energy plan for the state of Michigan, I voted against the windmills because everybody in this room is paying between $5 and $15 every single month to keep those windmills spinning. You cannot create an economy based on marginal and intermittent wind patterns in the thumb and expect to have those high-paid jobs that are heavily intensified in electric generation in your state.
Hold on, Mr. Sanborn, do you want a quick response? Hold on. Go ahead, Mr. Sanborn.
Well, I don't disagree with what he's saying. I think the importance is, and not just coal and so on, but I think we have to put the emphasis on, and I know I'm going back to the oil cartels. We need to have alternative fuel sources so that we're less dependent on the oil cartels, for example.
Okay.
And I'm all about creating competition with alternative sources of energy.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell.
Thanks very much. I want y'all to mark this down. It scares me a little bit, but it's a big part of what Senator Pavlov said that I agree with, and don't give him 15 seconds. Climate change, first it was we were going to have an ice age. Then the global ice caps were melting. Now we are cooler than we've been in 38 years. The science, it's all fuzzy science. Meanwhile, the EPA is passing regulations like the Clean Power Standards that are going to close 9 power plants in Michigan, and it's going to cost us $9 billion. Now guess what? That comes out of all your pocket. That will come out of your pocket, it will damage our economy, and we allow that to happen. If we want to deal with environmental standards in the world environment, we need trade agreements that actually include environmental standards for the people we trade with, so that in fact, we get a better environment in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. VanAssche.
Thank you. Definitely, I'm for, renewable energy. Obviously, running a renewable energy company, Navitas Systems, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And no, we did not receive any subsidies. Actually, Navitas was created as a result of Obama stimulating A123 technologies. They gave millions of dollars, and they didn't manage it right, because anytime people get stuff for free, they wasted it. They end up going bankrupt, and as a result, Wang Chung, a billionaire company, China company came in and bought that. What they couldn't buy is the Government Solutions Group, which Navitas, I led the merger to the Advanced Solutions Group. So that answers that question.
I didn't mean it to be an accusation, by the way.
No, it's no problem. I just want to make it for clarity. Now, however, you got to understand the jet stream. So the jet stream goes from west to east. So we're over-regulated here in America with EPA standards. And yeah, they're good for us, and it keeps us clean air and that. But the problem is the rest of the world's not doing it. They're not up to the same standards. So when I visit China, I come back, you got to wear a mask over there for a reason. The cancer rate is just exploding. And all that comes over here from west to east, and we're getting that. So if we're going to have the same EPA standards, we need to make sure our international partners are adhering to the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Forlini.
So you agree with me?
So that is part of it. The regulation around the world, if we're going to compete, we're getting sucker punched by other countries that are producing cheap energy. And let me just say this, I believe all of the above is good. I believe in wind, I believe in solar, I believe in nuclear. I believe that if we don't, in coal and natural gas, I believe that we need to have a full 4 or 5 prong attack on energy as a matter of national defense. If we can't supply our own energy needs, we're going to be subjected to the whims of other countries. So, I visited a nuclear plant down in Monroe, and in a room about half the size of just this one ballroom, they were saying that in 30 years, that's how much fuel rods were spent in 30 years. That's not bad. The better part of it, though, is Jimmy Carter outlawed the recycling of those fuel rods, which would have amounted to about the size of half this table here. That's what we need to start looking at, being smarter about our energy, not talking about it from a political standpoint, but a solution standpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Forlini. New question, Rocky.
Let me first start off by asking, by a show of hands, how many of you support repeal and replace of Obamacare?
No, absolutely.
So all of you. Okay, so here's my
Does that
question.
shock you?
It's very shocking.
If they didn't, they had to go to a
So
different meeting.
who does this first question go to, Charlie?
Mr. Forlini.
Mr. Forlini, I'm going to start with you.
Yes.
Tell me what you would keep of Obamacare and what you would specifically replace it. And I want specifics from each one of you.
So why do we have Obamacare? Because there was a perceived problem to begin with, and so politicians thought that government was the solution. Unfortunately, Obamacare was not the solution. It created another bureaucracy, another huge problem of more government in our lives. Healthcare costs have not gone down. Healthcare costs have not gone down at all. I'm a health insurance agent. I have a division that just does health insurance. And I'll tell you, we have not found any savings in the healthcare arena whatsoever. So what would I replace it with? Well, you know, there's all these pages, all this bureaucracy. Could have they have said, well, a child needs to stay on a healthcare plan until age 26. You know what? That's probably a good solution for a lot of families, particularly when kids go to age 26 in college. That's a good solution. But that's about a paragraph. We go to another paragraph, no pre-existing conditions. All right, there's another paragraph. We haven't even filled a page yet in regulation, and we would have solved most of the problems that are out there, that were out there.
So just so I'm clear, there's nothing in the Obamacare that you would keep?
No, I think you just
Well, you
said
said those two
two parts
those
that
are
you would
two
keep
simple
and two
things.
parts that you would replace them
And
with.
it's a much more broader question and much more complicated. That's why we've screwed it up, is because we let the bureaucrats and the politicians come up with the answers. They don't have the answers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sanborn.
I would vote to repeal it and replace it. I'd replace it with Trump care, because picture, it's January 3rd of next year, and Donald Trump is being sworn in, and he's going to roll out his plan. And in that, something I definitely agree with is he's going to have interstate competition so that you can go across state lines. Competition creates choice, creates lower prices, creates quality. And we need to be able to cross state lines to purchase health care. And I've heard Donald Trump talking about it. I'm looking forward to him becoming our next president and repealing Obamacare as we do it. Got to go. It's been a burdensome nightmare. So we repeal and replace it, and we open up to...
So just so I'm clear, there's nothing in Obamacare that you like?
Well, and Tony said the concept of having insurance covered for children up to, well, young adults to 26 years of age was
That's
certainly
okay.
an attractive feature, but that's easy to roll that into the next health care plan.
Okay, thank you. Mr. VanAssche.
Thank you. Definitely repeal and replace, and no, there's nothing I would keep in that thing. It was 20,000 pages just jammed down the American people's throats. It was a partisan bill. It was against unpopular belief. And now as Americans, and we here in our 10th district, we're paying more for health care and receiving less quality. This is a shame. So nothing I would replace, keep in it. As far as what I would do to recommend going forward, if there was some type of reform and if we can get some movement on this, I would definitely open it up for the states to go across the United States, so to stimulate that free market and competitive advantage to drive down the cost. I always say this, practitioners and patients, they should decide what's best for their health care, not bureaucrats and politicians in D.C.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. By the way, I call it the Unaffordable Care Act, not the Affordable Care Act. Is there anybody in this room that's seen $2,500 a year in savings in their health care? Anybody at all? I thought not. The reality is, because of Obamacare, we now have more IRS agents than FBI agents or Secret Service agents. Why? Because they want to make sure they get our tax money. What I would keep in it is, we mentioned earlier, the coverage for people until they're 26. In fact, my children have used that at times. The coverage for people that are pre-existing conditions so the insurance companies can't foreclose them. What we need to change? Buy insurance across state lines. More importantly, allow people to buy the type of insurance they want. Effectively, in this room, you all have the same insurance. You're all paying for it in one manner or another, whether you need it or not. And the reality is, most people would benefit from options. They would benefit from the option of getting a catastrophic policy and being able to get a health savings account that they could do for day-to-day medical care, and it's precluded by Obamacare. We need to repeal and replace it and put those factors in it.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Pavlov.
Yeah, I signed the pledge to repeal it and replace it. What I'm not going to replace it with is requiring the grandmothers in our country to carry maternity insurance. I am certainly not going to move into a policy that puts coverage instead of risk. I mean, we've tipped this thing upside down. The Medicaid expansion that was pushed through the Michigan legislature is costing the state hundreds of millions of dollars a year. That was the implementer for Obamacare. We're certainly not bringing that back. The other thing is we're going to put the patient at the center of the transaction. And what we have to be able to make sure is that you have that relationship back with your doctor. And when we do that, you're back in control of your health care. You have that personal relationship. We're not going to let your records go on. We're going to get rid of the durable medical good tax that's killing families. And we're going to get rid of this runaway cost hikes and the $20,000 to $30,000 deductibles that many in our country are facing.
Charlie, Senator Pavlov brought it up. I want to know from the members that were in office in the state, I guess Representative Forlini and Senator Pavlov, how did you vote on Medicaid expansion?
I voted against it because it was going to crush it. It was this three-year promise. There's a reason for it,
Representative
though.
Forlini?
I voted for it, and I'll tell you why we voted for it. Because they were already taking our money. The federal government was taking our money, and without that, it's like, all right, I'm going to vote against it, but I'm not going to take the money back. That would be a foolish vote.
All right, thank you.
All right, Henry, just a new topic, new question here. Ask Mr. VanAssche, please.
All right, yes, gentlemen. 20 years ago, this district was represented by a left-wing Democrat named David Bonnier. And
There's memories.
David Bonnier was the leading opponent of NAFTA in Washington, a trade agreement that was overwhelmingly supported by Republicans. 20 years later, the Republican nominee, presumptive nominee for president, Donald Trump, is now the leading opponent of NAFTA nationally. I'm confused. Do you all agree with David Bonnier that NAFTA should be torn up and renegotiated?
Mr. VanAssche.
Yeah, I do. I would have to answer it this way. I believe in free trade, but it has to be fair and it has to be mutually beneficial. And I would even go above that. It has to be equitable in favor of the United States. And so if we need to readdress that and relook at that and open it back up to make sure that we're benefiting more, absolutely. I'm surprised that presidential candidate Trump would be such a strong proponent for it. I understand his reasonings why, but it needs to benefit us a lot more than the other countries.
You don't think it
To be
does?
clear, no, Trump is opposed to NAFTA, just as Democrat David Bonnier was.
So I would definitely be opposed to, in favor of reworking it in favor of the United States benefiting more from it, if it was going to be, or you just do away with it, because it really hasn't benefited us. It's really hurt us.
All right, thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Mr. Forlini.
I'll tell you who it hurt more than anybody is the American worker. The American worker got hurt more than anybody else in this whole process. We have jobs that have gone overseas and companies, multinational companies that have moved their operations, and it's gone back and forth, but a company is going to go to where the cheap labor is. And that's what we've seen happen, is go to the cheap labor. So it's the American worker that has suffered because there wasn't a fair trade agreement in place to begin with.
Mr. Sanborn.
Mr. Sanborn, before, just to throw in an interesting fact to go with Mr. Forlini's description, the Michigan exports currently $11 billion a year to Mexico. Michigan is one of the largest exporting states in this country to Mexico. If the NAFTA is renegotiated, do you fear that would hurt this district?
Well, certainly that's your area of expertise, but I think Ross Perot summed it up best when he said that large sucking sound. That were those jobs that were leaving the United States to go to Mexico, to go to Latin American countries. And it's not just the jobs, but the businesses, the corporations that went down there. And Tony mentioned that it was the cheap labor, but not just the cheap labor, but the cheaper taxation when companies domicile in foreign countries, and the regulation. You see, because they're not dealing with OSHA or MyOSHA in Michigan. They're not dealing with these wacky ergonomics issues. They're not dealing with the red tape and regulation. You know, when I was the chairman of regulatory reform in the state of Michigan, we did hearings to find out why jobs were leaving the state of Michigan and going to Georgia and other places like that. They rolled out the red carpet, just bring your jobs, they gave them tax abatements, and that was that large sucking sound, not just to Mexico with NAFTA, but to the other states here in Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Sanborn. Mr. Pavlov.
Well, Henry, I would say that anything that's 20 years old needs a little bit of work. And I would also say that you can take a look at the financial impacts, but let's take a look at our impact on society and the heroin problem and the issues with drugs. Couple that with an administration that Obama has been leading to pull border security off, to be able to let the porous borders continue to run these things through. Our trucks are coming through with drugs on them. They're coming through with human trafficking people, the narcotics. It isn't just about trade. We are paying a heavy social cost for agreements like that. And any trade agreement needs to make sure that it's being monitored and everybody is playing by the same rules. You know, we're really focusing on Mexico here, but we have to understand we have a great trading partner in Canada. And so the materials that go back and forth, it's a little bit different on the Canadian side. But still, we're at risk. And so if we're not willing to be able to take a look at it and address the reasons why that trade is going, like 35% marginal tax rate that we have on corporations, those are all contributing factors to the problems that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlov. Mr. Mitchell.
Henry, the dichotomy you set up is interesting. Are we going to talk about the Johnson administration next? I mean, let's talk about the policy, which is what do we do about trade and the impact it's having in this country? The reality is, and I give Senator Pavlov credit, he's stolen my line from the last debate, that NAFTA, along with a variety of other trade agreements, have been around eons, 20 years. What business agreement have you seen in your experience in this that exists for 20 years and you don't renegotiate it? You're making an assumption because he opens it up for negotiation, we're going to lose $11 billion. Everyone benefits from trade, but it has to be free trade. And I would agree with Donald Trump that, frankly, in a variety of areas, we're taking it in the ear, and I'm cleaning that up for public consumption, okay? We need to renegotiate NAFTA, we need to deal with CAFTA, and we need to go back on the TPA because of the TPP, because in fact, it doesn't deal with a variety of things, including currency manipulation, environmental standards, which I mentioned earlier. We can go through a list of them, and we need to deal with that.
But if I could just interject, Mr. Mitchell, as a businessman, you know we are internationally the most open, the most free trade nation in this on this planet. If the United States initiates renegotiation of our trade agreements like NAFTA, do you not fear a trade war that would hurt, for example, agriculture businesses like those in this district who export millions of dollars overseas?
If it's handled as adults, I think, in fact, we can do that. I think we can negotiate it. We have to deal with China and stealing intellectual property. Let's be serious about it. And you know that's very much the case. Check the car, the Cherry that came over, the knockoff of a GM car. Surprise. The reality is how long are we going to take it in a year before we decide we're going to deal with it and deal with some ramifications? We've lost our jobs in this country. My dad lost his job at the auto plant because of NAFTA.
I think everybody on the panel wants Kathy to ask the next question.
All right, well, I'm glad the word jobs came up and American worker came up in that last question, because that leads into my question. I'm sure you gentlemen all heard last week the latest unemployment numbers. 4.9% unemployment, right? If you listen to the White House and all the White House lapdogs, you would think President Obama and his administration saved the economy, 4.9%. But the far less reported number, and the much more important number, of course, is the labor force participation rate. And that, of course, is the number of people in the country who can work but aren't working, or the people who can work or at least trying to work. Anybody know what the labor force participation rate was for June last week? Anyone?
60%? 51, 52%.
62.7%. But does anybody... Hello. But does anybody know what the labor force participation rate was when at its historical highs, back before the recession?
Probably 85%.
66%, but it's still a huge deal, because at that rate, if we had a historical rate of participation today, unemployment would be 9.7%. So we've got, the real problem is that there are still more and more people who can work who aren't. They're not even trying. As members of Congress, I don't even know who this is going to. I don't remember who's going to. Anyway, well, regardless, as a member of
There's
Congress,
a question here somewhere.
right here, Charlie.
Oh, right, sorry. How much money does she get? That's good.
I've been asking him questions, so audience participation. How would you get more people back into the labor force?
Mr. Pavlov, let's try that one.
Well, since we're talking statistics, do you know when the lowest unemployment rate in this country was? 2% in 1943. Think about where we were in 1943. That's when America worked, you guys. What this administration has done is replace jobs with handouts. That's what we're dealing with. And as a member of Congress, if we don't address that point blank, we're going to lose the middle class. We cannot be taking what Obama is handing us back and live with it. It has neutralized it. It is crushing our urban areas. It is costing us billions of dollars in productivity. It has been a destabilizing factor for any kind of innovation. People don't want to get up off the couch because their benefits equal $15 to $18 an hour. Why do they want to go work for $9? And so if we cut the fuel line on these benefits and these handouts and replace it with workforce and jobs and get up in the morning and go do something productive, we're going to be much better. We'll move toward that 1943 number.
Mr. Mitchell.
I believe most people want to work, but in fact, there's not sufficient jobs, there's not sufficient opportunity to work, and as Phil said, the entitlement system is wrong. The biggest problem is stop calling it entitlements. Since when were you entitled to sit on the couch and collect benefits, to collect food stamps, to collect cash assistance, a cell phone? And we've been tricked into that by progressives. It's an entitlement. No. When I grew up, it was a stopgap. It was welfare, it was public assistance, and we were on it a number of times when Dad got laid off from the auto plant. The reality is I ran some of the largest welfare-to-work programs in the country. What you need to do is eliminate those programs, have a time limit. Other states have dealt very effectively with some of the problems. In Maine, they've got a limit on the SNAP program that they have to work, go to school, or volunteer 20 hours a week, or they lose their benefits. The caseload in Maine went down to 12,000 in 2 months. Florida has drug testing for access to welfare benefits. Go Governor Scott. They threatened to sue him, but the reality is we have to pack drug tests for jobs most days. Why should they not have to?
All right, thank you, Mr. Forlini.
Yeah, these entitlement programs are destroying our country. You know, there was a time where you had to work if you had some kind of benefits. I believe we need to get back to that. If we're going to give these benefits, if there's a safety net that the federal government's going to provide, I think that there should be value brought back. Whether it's, and I think it's a matter of work. GM, Chrysler, Ford. When I was a township supervisor, they had a program in place where if they weren't working, they had to do community service in order to get some benefit that they got through the auto companies. I brought them in to clean our parks, to paint our buildings, to do all the work that we needed to have done, and it didn't cost us a penny. We need to get these people that are on entitlement programs, not to be entitled, but to earn something, maybe even earn trade along the way, and clean up our parks, and clean up our roads, and clean up everything that we have here.
Mr. Sanborn.
I've seen it time and time again, having worked with many of these families who end up making out better by just staying at home on the couch, if you will. And when they can draw a housing stipend, a food stamps, and I said the ADD stipend and the bipolar stipend and disability income and supplemental income, when you can work the system and you can end up getting a pension, a lucrative pension before you've done one day of work. Now, when I was in the House of Representatives and the Senate, we worked very hard to reform welfare. Michigan was only one of 2 states in the United States, and Rocky, you remember this, one of 2 states in the United States that had lifetime welfare benefits. We reformed that. We need to find cost efficiencies with regard to that. Now, it did shift over a lot of people to Social Security, and now they're working that system. We need to eliminate, we need to find the cost efficiencies there and find the people that are abusing the system, and starting with the illegal aliens.
All right, thank you, Mr. Berman. Mr. VanAssche.
Yes, this is why I was in favor of just repealing Obamacare, and I wouldn't keep anything in it. Employers aren't hiring employees anymore because they can't afford the health care premiums. That's number one. Number two is you got to have tax reform. Tax reform is the key to get back jobs back here. It starts at the corporate level. We have the highest corporate rate at 35%. That's why all the jobs are going outside of our country's borders. And you have to have reform with personal income tax. You have to cut those rates, put more money back into us, our citizens, so they spend it on the economy, and that's what makes an economy grow.
Thank you, Mr. VanAssche. Last question, I'll take it real quick. I know you candidates believe that you are the best one to represent this district in Congress. I get that. However, if you're not the nominee, will you pledge to support somebody else on this panel? And if the answer is yes, then I want you to say, assess this group of candidates to represent this district, excluding yourself. Mr. Pavlov.
Would you repeat that question? Because you went all over the board on that thing. Let me answer the first part. I would absolutely support the winner of the primary and do everything I can do to make sure that that man got to Washington, D.C. Now, the next part of your question.
Tell me assess this group of candidates. How does this group stack up, in your opinion, compared to you? But in your opinion, this group.
I think...
Don't mention yourself.
No, I won't. All I would say is the four of those come about that much short.
Mr. VanAssche.
Absolutely, I'm a team player. I'd support whoever the constituents deem necessary, who they think will elect them, represent them the best. How I assess these guys, I mean, they're all great guys, but I'll tell you that the big difference is there's only one veteran up here, and that's me. And what's the biggest problem facing our nation? Is ISIS and radical Islam terrorists, which our president refuses to acknowledge. Who can defeat that threat best? A veteran who's been in 4 foreign wars.
All right, hold on. I know. All right, let me go. I don't mean to cut you off, but just your assessment. Mr. Forlini.
And we're not supposed to talk about ourselves, right?
I don't want you to talk about yourself.
I just want to make sure I got that mixed up here.
Now talk about these guys.
I would absolutely support every one of these gentlemen to my left. Of course, they're all to my left. But the second time I've been all the way on the right here. No, they're all every one of them bring a different level of experience, whether it's public service or business service, and I would absolutely support every one of them.
All right, Mr. Sanborn.
I absolutely would support everyone here, and frankly, I think the people of the United States of America are sick and tired of the negative political, argumentative tone that's going on in this country today. We need more statesmen, but to be a statesman, you can be a fighter. And I've seen the campaign turn a little negative lately, and I'm encouraging everybody that's running to remember, you can be a statesman and get things done and be a fighter. And, I have my children in this room. I've taught them to go by...
It's not technically about yourself, I guess.
The golden rule. To go by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so I'm not going to say anything negative about anyone during this campaign. I'm just going to keep knocking doors, and I'm going to support the winner of the primary. And I hope that they're going to support me.
Mr. Mitchell.
I certainly would support any of the people up here. I think that they come from a place that represents Republican values, and we need that representing this district. So there's no question about that. Now, in answering your question about which one, I'm a little different than the other guys. If I had a choice, I would support Tony Forlini because he has business experience. Wow. He has relevant business experience. Now, I'll bicker with him about his votes. Trust me, we'll talk about that separately. He's sitting to the right tonight, but not all the time. But the reality is, Tony has relevant, real-world business experience day to day, and this country needs that more than they need anything else at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Okay. 1 minute closing. 1 minute. We'll start in the same order. Representative Forlini, you want to say something nice about your fellow? I'm just saying. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, this is our fifth. I think it's our fifth forum that we've been together, and I have a mutual respect for every one of these gentlemen here. You have a tough choice. You have a tough choice as to who you want to see represent you in the 10th district, and whoever wins this seat is probably going to be in there for quite a while. So it's a very important vote. It's a very important vote that you need to ponder. I come from, like Paul said, from both the business world as well as the political world, and I try to meld those two things together. And I come from a world where my dad was an immigrant and saw this country as the world of, as the land of opportunity. This was an unbelievable opportunity for him to come to, and for my kids to be looking at other states to live. It was the reason I ran for state rep, because I couldn't see where my dad came to this country for all this opportunity just for us to squander it. I want to bring this state of Michigan back to the land of opportunity. If you believe in what I'm saying, I'd like you to go to my website, Forlini for US, help support me. I've got a Facebook page, Forlini for Congress. Appreciate your support.
Thank you, Tony Forlini. David Grande.
Thank you. Yeah, I got in this race for one reason, to give our constituents a choice. You have 4 politicians and a veteran. Not only a veteran with 27 years, but also in the private sector. So I would disagree with Paul that Tony's the only one who has the business sense. I'm the only one up here who has an MBA, by the way. Having said that, in the Air Force, we live by 3 core values. Integrity first, doing the right thing when no one else is looking. You know, we don't see that with our Democratic presidential nominee. She should be in jail. The second core value is service before self. I believe in considering other people's needs more important than my own. The third core value that I live by is excellence in all we do, and I base that off Scripture, whether it be by word or deed due to the glory of God. I've done that for 27 years. I'm a man of integrity and character, and that's why I'm running on courage, character, and conviction. I would say this, these guys are good choices, but I'm the right choice. And I hope you guys would vote for me on August 2nd to be your elected representative. Thank you.
David VanAssche, thank you. Paul Mitchell.
Thanks, Charlie. Tony, as of next week, next Friday, we'll have done 10 forums across the district, forums or debates, since we started this process. This is the largest crowd. It's a great crowd, and I appreciate everyone being here. I grew up in a family that was working class. Dad built trucks on the line. Mom worked at the Salvation Army. I was the oldest of 7, saved money to go to college. I was the first in my family, my extended family, to go to college, or mine graduate from college. And I got a degree from James Madison College in public policy and economics. I then went for 35 years, I devoted my life to helping adults get the skills needed to go to work, to support their families. I could help people and make a living. What's cooler than that, frankly? I retired in 2011, and I continue to have a need to make a difference because we need change in Washington, this world. I'm the only candidate that's put out detailed plans for creating economic opportunity, Michigan Prosperity Plan, and the Agriculture Opportunity Plan. You can see both on the website. They're detailed plans of solutions for our country that we need, and we need them quickly. I appreciate your support. Your vote would be appreciated.
Thank you. Paul Mitchell. Alan Sanborn.
It was an honor to serve Macomb County in both the State House and the State Senate. And in doing so, I was, I think, a reflection of the district. I was Michigan's most conservative senator year after year, not just fiscally, but socially. You can always rely on that conservative vote out of me. I'm the one guy up here who can actually say that I never voted for a tax increase, and I think I might be the only one who's taken the American for Tax Reform pledge and never will vote for a tax increase when I go to Congress. I will continue to reflect the values and the views of this district, and at the end of my career, I want to be able to come home to my wife and kids and know that I've served honorably, and to be able to look up to my God at night and know that He thinks, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant."
Thank you, Alan Sanborn. Bill Pavlov.
Well, in the minute that I have, the first thing I want to do is thank each and every one of you for coming out and participating. Many of you have already made a decision, but to those at home who are looking, you got to see up close the future of the 10th Congressional District. And let's talk about the future, because that's what elections are about. We all have a past, we all have experiences that we bring to this table. Who's got the vision to build an America that's going to take care of generations to come? I have had great success not only in the business world for 20 years, I've had great success in the legislature, and that legislative success has been really from people like you. I am very proud to serve. I am very proud to have been elected 6 times. I take that with great pride. I look forward for your support on August 2nd. My website is philpavlo.com. Please join grab a yard sign, and before my time comes up, I want to thank my family and my supporters who came out today to help encourage this candidacy, and I couldn't get it done without you guys, so thank you very much.
Bill Pavlov. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this debate. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.